Let's dig deeper into this. We've got an all-star panel beginning with senior fellow at the Cato Institute Ilya Shapiro, CBSN political contributor and founding partner of 270 Strategies Lynda Tran are all with us from Washington. We should disclose that several employees at 270 Strategies do some work for the Hillary Clinton campaign. However, Lynda does not. We've got CBSN political contributor Leslie Sanchez. She's joining us here on set. And also in Washington is our chief legal correspondent, Jan Crawford. Welcome all. Jan, let me begin with you. I'm sure within legal circles in D.C., Garland is very well known, but for the American people who may not be familiar with this judge, what do we know about him?
Well, I mean, I think that the president really kind of laid out in a beautiful way his bio in those remarks in the Rose Garden this morning. I mean, he has unassailable credentials. He is an experienced, deeply experienced chief judge, highly respected by Republicans, by conservatives across the board. He is a careful, fair jurist. He is not a judge who seems to be swinging for the fences out there to kind of rewrite the law. He's someone that everyone always said in this town, Merrick Garland, if he wants to be on the Supreme Court, better hope that Republicans are in the Senate, because he would be, you know, the only one that a Democratic president could get confirmed, and here we go. That's what Obama has done. Now, his record, I mean, he's obviously, you know, kind of got a career as a federal appellate judge, being nominated by President Clinton back in 1997. But, you know, he was a prosecutor, a federal prosecutor, worked in the Justice Department for Republican and Democratic administrations. He oversaw the prosecution of the Oklahoma City bombing. The president pointing out that that life experience that he had, in addition to his childhood growing up in Chicago and working his way through college at Harvard and then Harvard Law School, really shows that he understands how the law affects everyday life and real people. And I think what's really interesting is that you saw the president really kind of teeing up how this fight is going to unfold right now. I mean, he is presenting Merrick Garland as, you know, this reasonable compromise pick who is above politics, who is a judge with those unassailable credentials, a judge, as he said, that everyone on both sides of the aisle not only respects but likes, and someone who does have that life experience. So he's teeing this up as someone who is the best possible candidate for Republicans that they could get from a Democratic president, with the idea that if they don't confirm him, well, if Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders is in the White House in January, they might get someone who is a lot more liberal.
Ilya, so as Jan said, President Obama teed this up pretty perfectly. How do Republicans respond?
Well, for the moment, they already are responding. In addition to McConnell's speech, we've seen tweets from Paul Ryan and others that for now they are going with the no hearing, no vote position. We won't consider this nominee, not because of any of his qualifications, but because of the principle that the American people should decide. I think ultimately this might change if the polls change, if indeed the political calculus is such. And I agree with the assessment that Jan conveyed, that this is about the best nominee the Republicans could hope for from a Democratic president. Certainly better than anyone that Hillary Clinton would put up, especially with a Democratic Senate. So if the polls are showing that Hillary or Bernie or whoever else from the Democrats is going to win the presidency, then they would be much more likely to confirm and even consider Judge Garland then. So it's not something that they have to decide upon now, this week, or even this month.
Before I go to Lynda and to Leslie, I just have another question for Jan. Jan, is this in a way, and I'm asking you to put on your House of Cards hat here, but you know, I'm just thinking about this. He's 63 years old, which is uncommon to nominate a Supreme Court justice at that age. I wonder if this is a way for President Obama to extend or to throw a bone to some Republicans by saying, look, I'm nominating somebody who is 63 years old. If you wait around and let's say, for example, Hillary Clinton becomes the nominee and eventually the president, she will probably nominate somebody who's in their 40s or early 50s. So besides his impeccable credentials, as you mentioned, I sort of am trying to read some of the tea leaves here. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I mean, he is the oldest nominee in modern history. And in fact, you know, he had been considered twice before by President Obama. And the rap 5 years ago was that he was probably too old then. So I think some people really discounted his chances this time, not only, you know, because of brings no diversity to the court, but also because of his age. And that's why this really will be presented by the White House, and Democrats will argue that this is a compromise pick. You know, you saw this morning even some on the left were not super happy about Merrick Garland being the nominee. I mean, there was some disappointment on the left. Some people were telling me that this was boring. Others were saying it's disappointing. They had hoped for a more firebrand liberal, someone they might bring diversity to the court and be on that court for the next 40 years. Well, Garland doesn't check those boxes. So that gives the president more ammunition to argue to Republicans, look, I'm taking grief from my flank on the left. You guys can take some grief on the right. Let's all come together, you know, sing Kumbaya and get this fine man confirmed. You know, so that will be the argument. Now, as Ilya pointed out, I don't think we're going to see any movement for Republicans through the summer. But come, you know, September, October, if it looks like the Democratic nominee is going to clean up and walk into the Oval Office come January, Republicans, I think, would be hard-pressed not to confirm Garland at that point.
Jan, we know you've got a bit to do for evening news tonight, so we're going to get you a pass to get out of class early here this afternoon.
Right.
We'll let you go. But in the meantime, Lynda, I know you're standing by as well. Just hang on tight 1 minute. Leslie, I do want to get to you first. You know, we heard Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell cite a Biden speech just a few minutes ago. So is public perception not even playing a part in this? As far as the Republican leadership is concerned?
I'd like to say this punctuates the 7 years of obstructionism, or at least the idea and the theme of that, very much so. There's right now, no. I think my colleagues are correct that as a former speaker Rayburn used to say, when I feel the heat, I see the light. It might be that kind of thing as public opinion starts to change, because there is a kind of a road or a path within some Republicans who said, why can't there be a series of hearings, look at the qualifications and have an up or down vote the same way that they were compelling Miguel Estrada, who was George W. Bush's nominee, who faced just an extraordinarily difficult and contentious time on the Hill, or you know, trying to get that vote that he never had, ultimately withdrew it. And then you're hearing also the argument from the left that's basically saying, well, you had 7 senators who previously confirmed him for his position now, but just because they had prior precedents of that is not indicative of their future vote. You can look at Clarence Thomas, who had overwhelming support to bring on the appellate court, but then it was like 52-48 when he finally got to the Supreme Court. So these senators do move around, and you don't really know what you're going to get. I think that's what ultimately is true. Secondly, it may change based on political wins as they move, but right now you're seeing this wing of the Republican Party is going to stay very strong on principle versus person.